Welcome back, here we go. So we were doing our watercolor landscape. We added our textures on here. If you wanted to add anything like wax, you can do that with crayon. First thing we're gonna do is start prepping our paint. So we're just gonna take water and add to the colors that we're planning on using. I'm gonna add some yellow, or sorry, some green, some yellow. I might need blue for my sky, maybe some brown for my tree. So I'm just adding water to these things and preparing them. I don't know if I'm gonna use the red and orange, but I might, so I'm just gonna add that in there and let that sit. The one I'm not gonna use right now is black. So black is one that's really strong, and landscapes rarely have black except for like maybe little details. So I have my paint, I have my water, my brushes. I'm going to start with the background and work my way forward, and this will take multiple days. So I'm going to start with just my background, and I'm going to think about my sky. I also need a napkin. I forgot that. Here is my napkin. Okay. So, taking my blue, I'm just going to lightly rub it. Get that ready. I'm going to use the wet on wet technique for the sky. So I'm just going to take water. I'm going to avoid around my tree. So I'm just going to go around the tree area above my mountain. So be careful not to go into your mountains if you're doing a mountain landscape or whatever ground line yours is. I'm just going to add water. Then I'm going to take my blue and immediately add that in. I'm going to try to go a little bit darker towards the top and then let it fade lighter as it goes down. So this is barely any blue, which is good. The sky is a light blue usually. It's not usually really dark. Okay, I'm gonna use blotting. So I'm just gonna take my napkin, sprinkle it up like this, and make some clouds by just pressing and lifting. I don't want them to be all the same size, so I'm gonna go back and kind of change the size of them. So just by pressing on the page, I have created lighter areas that look like clouds. Just like that. So now my sky has clouds. Yay! Okay. I'm going to move into my mountains. For my mountains, I will use a little bit of black just to make a gray. Now to make a gray, I'm going to use my lid to mix. So I'm going to add my gray here, my black, just a little bit in there. You can see that it's on there. And then I'm just going to add water to it so it turns into a light gray. So there's my light gray. That's great. Make sure you don't touch the sky as you are doing this because it's still wet, so it'll bleed into the sky. So I'm just going to be very careful and paint in my mountains. If you want a snow-capped mountain, just go around where the white's going to be, like that. So if you want to leave the mountain snowy, just go around it like that. If you don't want to, you can just paint right on top of that. And then I'm just going to paint this whole area in between where my mountains are and my ground line for my middle ground. If you have not made sure that you have your background, middle ground, and foreground, make sure you do that. You need to have all three areas. So I'm just going to paint that in there. Just like that, my middle ground, or my background is finished. Okay, I'm gonna rinse out my brush, move on into my middle ground. So my middle ground, I said that I wanted salt for the tree texture here. I want this to look far away, and there's something called atmospheric perspective, which makes things look more blue as it gets far away. So I'm gonna take some green and put it into my lid here, just like I did with the gray. You can see that. And to make it more bluish, I'm going to rinse out my brush and grab a little bit of my blue and mix it in there. So it's more of like a blue-green. It's a light blue-green. It's not very dark. I added lots of water. So I'm just going to take that and paint it into my middle ground, just where I put those trees that I wanted. And quickly get that on there because I gotta get the salt really quick. It's best if you already had the salt in your hand, but I forgot to do that. Going around my tree, trying not to paint into it too much. If a little bit gets on there, that's okay. Okay, immediately I'm going to sprinkle my salt. And there is that. Okay, I'm gonna do the water in my middle ground. I'm gonna kind of brush off some of that salt so I don't get it onto other things. So if I see it in places that it's not supposed to be, I could even do this to kind of help get rid of that. And then I'm just gonna do some blue for my water. So it should be about the same blue as the sky, so just really light. So here's water here. Then I'm gonna make a new green. I'm gonna use this green that I made, but I'm gonna add a little bit more yellow to it. So just taking a little bit of yellow, adding it in there. This color difference tells me that the rest of this will be grass. I'm just gonna paint that in there really quick. All right, and after I finish that, I'll have my middle ground done. I'm gonna go around my stream that I created there. I'll come back later and add that in there. But for now, I'm just gonna get my grass. I got my trees painted. This can be really faint. It doesn't need to be too bright. All right, our next one will be tomorrow. So make sure you let this dry in a flat area. Mine is kind of curving. That's okay if it's curving. But make sure you let it dry, and then we'll come back to this later. All right.